Wonderful. Look, we are live. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to today's webinar, The Accelerated Assistant. If you were with us in December, you knew we had some fun little props. So for Happy New Year, I've got these fun little star Happy New Year headband. But I won't wear that throughout the webinar. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Before I turn the program over to Joan, I have a few logistics to review with you. Joan will be speaking for about 40 minutes, followed by a live question and answer time for you. You may submit your questions during the webinar or hold them until the end of the program. Please keep in mind that Joan may not be able to answer every question today, as we are going to have many attendees on the line, many of you saying hello right now and welcome. And this webinar is actually on record as our highest number of registrants to date. We have beat all of our previous registration records, and we're nearly at 5,000 and over 1,000 live with us right now. So welcome, everyone. We do have a handout for today. You should have received that in your link reminder email for the webinar. So hopefully you've already printed that, downloaded it, and have it available. If you do not, have no fear. Our webinar administrator, Brian, will be putting a link in the chat for you, which he just did. So watch the chat, it's there. Also, we will send a replay link following today's webinar. So if you missed something and you want to recap that, you will be able to catch all this great information one more time. And you can do that by watching the replay at your convenience. It does not expire. Now, I would like to introduce Joan Burge, a pioneer in training and development for the administrative profession since 1990. As the founder and CEO of Office Dynamics International, Joan has been on a mission to improve the quality of work life for assistants and provide the necessary tools for assistants and executives to be successful in the workplace. Joan was the first to venture into administrative specific in-depth training and continues to be the pioneer in the industry. Joan is the accomplished author of 5 books for assistants, a professional speaker, consultant, and corporate trainer. Office Dynamics International is a global industry leader providing high-performance, sophisticated executive and administrative assistant training, earning the respect of premier clients like Cisco, AT&T, Humana, Procter & Gamble, and Nationwide Insurance. Welcome, Joan.
Hello, Jasmine. Woohoo! Well, and welcome to everyone. Almost like 5,000 people today. That is incredible, and it must mean you are ready to kick off the new year. I bet you had a great holiday, you rested, you relaxed, you probably ate a lot like I did, and now ready to kick off this very exciting 2017. And I am calling this year the Accelerated Assistant, which is also the theme of our 24th Annual Conference for Administrative Excellence this coming fall that's being held here in Las Vegas. And I'm just really jazzed about, this whole theme of the accelerated assistant, and also feel it's really vital for you in how to learn and live and work in this world of acceleration. The workplace is accelerating faster than anyone ever thought possible. Every day we absorb more information, connect with more people, and utilize more technology than our ancestors used in their entire life. Oh my gosh, how are you supposed to keep up? So in today's webinar, I want to talk about the 7 areas where you need to accelerate. I want to provide you with some tips and tools on how to accelerate. I want to talk about controlling the rate of acceleration. I mean, is it really possible to control the rate? And I'm going to use a little bit of an analogy and talk about, if you think about race car drivers who are going at 300 miles per hour, wow, they can spin out of control if they don't utilize certain skills and really have focus. So if you could maybe keep that in the back of your mind as we think about this acceleration. We're also going to talk about strategies for managing approaching curves in the road. So as you anticipate things are changing or you see things coming, what are some strategies that you can use? So I'm very excited. I know we have a lot of territory to cover, and I want to be sure to get to answering your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. I hope you have the handout. So let's start first of all with, where do you need to accelerate? When months ago, Jasmine and I were talking about this. Actually, we were sitting in my office, I think it was late spring, and we were talking about how everything is just moving at such a fast pace and going faster and faster, and how we have to think faster and move faster. And so then I started to think, and we started thinking about, where do you need to accelerate? So the first area I identified is your learning curve. So in your handout, it says it's not enough to merely acquire knowledge. You must aim for continuous, rapid improvement. So I want to talk about those two items. First of all, it says it's not enough to merely acquire knowledge. Well, I've known that for years, and you probably know that. We can acquire a lot of knowledge and stuff and information and do nothing with it. So the idea here, 3 thoughts for you. Number 1, you have to do something with it, okay? So do I. As I learn and I gather all this great information, I need to do something with it. Now, a part of that is what I notice, assistants tend to struggle in writing a development plan. So when I've gone in and I've done or worked with them for on-site coaching or training, and here I've delivered, 6 hours of information or 7 hours I've spent with them one-on-one, then we have to get to writing a development plan. And the assistants or the assistant really struggles with that and thinking about, okay, how do I take all this great information I've learned? I know that there are areas I need to improve and become better, but how do I actually put that into words? How do I put that into action? So that's something, we're not going to discuss today, but for you to really think about, and maybe you need some mentoring from one of your executives or a peer in your organization or someone else that you admire, even outside of your workplace, who can really help you understand how do you move something from acquiring it to execution. That's what you and I have to do. We all struggle with information overload. So when we look at this particular piece, we all struggle with it. We have more information coming at us today than ever, and it's not going to slow down. Well, sometimes maybe we're taking in too much information, and we need to be more selective in the areas, that we want to learn about and grow and read, because then it can become very stressful for us, and really it shouldn't be. Within the learning curve, the second piece of it, it says we must aim for continuous, rapid personal improvement, okay? So one thing you might consider is learning in bite-sized chunks, like you're attending this webinar. That's what I mean by a bite-sized chunk, right? Another idea is, so we've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives, and I'm going to continue to do Facebook Live this year, and hopefully just have little chunks of learning, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. It's really hard to sit there and just, again, absorb it. So this is a way to help you. I know I love to work in the bite-sized chunks. And what I do often is maybe I'm listening to a podcast while I'm putting on my makeup in the morning. That's a little bite-sized chunk. As I'm driving to work, I have something on, in my car. There's some great CDs I have, people I love to follow. So maybe that 10-minute drive to work, I'm getting another chunk of information. I love to read in chunks. I have books in my bedroom. I have books in my living room. I have books in my office at home. You know, I have books in various places and magazines and periodicals that I love to read. So I might just take 5-10 minutes, you know, in the morning. You know, for me, of course, I have the luxury. It's just me by myself in the morning. But you know, maybe as I'm having my cereal or whatever I'm eating that morning, I can have just a little chunk. So maybe that will help it may be more digestible for you. It'll be easier for you. And then the second part of that with the ongoing improvement and the little chunks, there is a wonderful book by Darren Hardy that came out a couple years ago that I read. I bought that book for my staff, called The Compound Effect. And I absolutely love that book and highly advise you get yourself a copy, especially early in the new year. It will help you. But that's basically Darren's philosophy, is that every day, if we just take little steps toward a goal we want to accomplish, it'll have a compound effect, and within 6 months we'll be amazed at the changes and being able to achieve our goals. So that's basically what I'm saying. You can take these little bits of information and you'll be amazed 6 months from now how much you've learned, how much you've grown, and how you become better. So the second area, this is really critical for you to accelerate your responsiveness to change. Change is happening hour by hour, half hour by half hour, 15 minutes by 15 minutes. So it leaves us with our heads spinning. And I have an entire almost 2-hour presentation on change. So I picked out my golden nuggets for you. And as it says in your handout, gone are the days of gradual adaptation. We have to embrace change at a swift pace today. So here are my 5 strategies for you if you want to take some notes on these. These aren't in your handout. Number 1 is to look for the opportunity in the change. A lot of changes occur that we don't like. I know over the holiday, I was visiting with a lot of my family members, and both in Michigan and in Ohio. And my family in Ohio are going, you know, they were going through some monumental changes. I mean, within 5 days, there were 3 huge changes that hit my dad and my stepmom. 3 in 5 days. Amazing, right? And they're monumental. They're not little pieces of change. And so as a family, we sat around and really talked about, while some of those are difficult changes, you know, for them to have to move through and accept, we ended up really thinking about the opportunities that those changes would bring about, and knowing in our hearts that it will all work out and it will be for the good. So when you're going through changes, especially ones maybe you don't want, instead of focusing on what's going to go wrong and why it's not going to work, especially changes in your workplace maybe, look for the opportunities. What are the lessons? What are your growth opportunities? Second is to focus on what you can control. So for example, I'll just give you something quickly that I know people deal with. So they've lost a job. Okay, they can't control that. When I was an assistant, 2 companies that I worked for, we downsized and I lost my jobs. And I really liked working there. So I couldn't control that. I lost my job, but I could control my attitude. I could control getting my resume together, acting quickly, talking to people, networking, reaching out to resources. So when a change occurs, instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, this is out of control and I can't deal with this, focus on what are the aspects of the change that you can control, because that's going to help you feel better. Number 3, still under responsiveness to change, is keep the best of the old in your life. And I don't necessarily mean keep the best of the old people in your life. What I mean by that is that when different changes are occurring, try to keep the other things in your life that help you feel stable and that give you security. Number 4, go easy on yourself. Don't be hard on yourself if you're struggling with changes that are occurring in your personal or professional life. I mean, as this accelerated assistant who's operating in a business place that is full of acceleration and change, be easy on yourself. Don't try not to get frustrated and get upset that you're not learning quickly, you're not adapting quickly. It will come. And then number 5, I find this critically important, is to surround yourself with the right people. So if you're going to embrace this swift transformation, we can't do it alone. And that's where your networks come into play. And that's why it's so important to have your inner circle, as Peggy Vasquez talked to us at our conference last year, and she was on a webinar with us last year. It was great. So you've got to build your inner circle on a daily basis. You have to build your networks and your support team so that when you're going through change, you have that group to help support you. All right, the third area for you to accelerate is in the area of time. You know, we have less time to execute today. So in your handout, it says the luxury of distant deadlines is dead. You must deliver exceptional quality quickly. So I know in our business, in our industry, our booking cycles for me to speak or do training, or for our trainers to go out, are getting less. They're getting smaller. So years ago, maybe where people were thinking 6 and 8 and 9 months out to hire anyone on my team to come in and speak or do the training, it's now coming down to where even within 1 month, I mean, we'll get calls and somebody will say, oh, you know, we need this speaker. We would love to have Joan come. And then we'll say, okay, well, when's the date? Oh, in 1 month. Seriously? Like, I do have a schedule. I do have other things booked, and I do have to prepare. Even though I speak on certain topics over and over and over, I customize my work. I make it fit for the client. So we're feeling the pinch, and I'm sure you're feeling the pinch. You have shorter and shorter cycles in which to execute and get business done. So the other part of that is we can't let the quality of our work suffer just because we have less time. We just also had a situation that happened right before the holiday, early December. We had a new client guarantee and confirm training for in January, for next week. And I was off for 2 weeks in December. And it's 3 days of training and coaching executives and assistants together. So it's huge. I had a very short time, basically, to get everything together. But the point is, I know I still have to deliver the very best for these people. And so thinking about yourself, you've got to use strategies that help you be able to deliver quality, and don't let your work suffer. And then all of a sudden your executive starts to question, you know, what's going on with you because you're not doing as good a job or things are falling through the cracks. That's really important. The next area for you to accelerate is your career management. And the key word is management, managing your career. And so it says in your handout, drifting without direction is not an option today. So, and there's many pieces, you know, when we talk about career management, because I'm not talking necessarily about moving up, you know, moving around or that type of thing. It's within the role that you are currently playing, the job that you are in. It's managing your career. It's managing your conversations with your manager. It's January. Have you yet, I hope, had a conversation with your manager about what your goals are for 2017? Actually, that conversation should have happened in December. And maybe some of you did. And so congratulations. I am really happy for you. But if you haven't, before January 31st occurs or arrives, you should have a conversation with your executive and say, You know, these are my goals for this year. Here's the professional development that I want to take place. Here's how I want to help better support you. Here are the conversations I would hope that you and I have to build our partnership. You know, managing all of those different pieces that are part of, you know, a career. So let's go on, and I'm being cognizant of the clock there. So the next area that you have to accelerate is your value to your company. So notice it says meeting expectations doesn't cut it. And you're probably saying, what do you mean? If I'm meeting expectations, that should be phenomenal. Well, I'm just sorry to break this news to you, but in today's business world of acceleration, it's not just meeting expectations. It's beyond that. You have to aspire to greater levels. In today's workplace, we have to prove our value to our organizations. We have to make sure we're impacting the bottom line. We have to make sure that we're really helping drive the business. And at our conference last year, we had Darren Martin speak, Dr. Darren Martin, a wonderful book, A Company of Owners. That's exactly what he's talking about, being an owner. And then the next area of acceleration is focus. I'm sure if you have been following me for a while, you've heard me talk about this 100 times, and I'm not going to stop telling you probably this whole year. Distractions lurk around every corner. Distractions lurk every second of our day, whether it's a text coming in, an instant message coming in, someone coming to your desk. It's the noise, now you're in these open office environments and you probably have all kinds of distractions. So focus, focus, focus. Right now, you should be focused on this webinar. And when you're done and you have to, sign off, then you'll go to your next assignment. And then the next area to accelerate is innovation. And what I'm talking about here, it says you can't wait for inspiration to strike. You must ceaselessly seek solutions. So the best way I describe that is as you go through your day and you're doing your work, look at your work with a question mark. So as you go through your day, asking yourself, how can I make this, how can I streamline this process? How can I make this simpler? How can I do this faster? How can I be more effective? And when you start placing those questions, then you're going to start to get answers. So my question to you right now, it's in your handout, and you can answer this after the webinar, but if you want to go ahead and put something in the chat, which of those areas, which 3 of those 7 areas do you need to focus on in 2017? And again, please feel free to think about it after the webinar, but I would love for you to identify your 3 areas, write them on a piece of paper or put together a creative poster, make it fun, and say, these are my 3 words for this year that are going to help keep me on target. All right, let's move on. So the race is on, and what are you going to do? Let's look at some more strategies. And I have a piece here about controlling the rate of acceleration, and I really have given this tremendous thought in preparing for our conference. And I've Googled and researched about race car drivers, acceleration, velocity. I mean, I'm really studying this because it does relate to us. Is it possible to control acceleration? Probably not, because in the way I'm referring it to right now, I'm referring to acceleration as speed. And so everything is coming at you. So we really can't control the pace at which things come at us. So during the day, you probably can't control how fast requests come into you, how fast assignments or tasks or changes come into you. So therefore, you want to focus on the areas you can control. You can control your priorities. You can control having discussions with your executive to clarify priorities. You can control the quality of your work. You can control not being distracted and control and tell yourself you're going to be focused, okay? So even when you don't feel like you have control with everything coming at you, know in your heart that you always have control. There are aspects you can control. You just have to do it and you really be committed to that. And at this point too, you know, I'm thinking about race car drivers and the idea that they're going 300 miles per hour. I mean, just imagine that, going around a racetrack. So they really have to have a lot of, you know, control within themselves, again, and a skill set. So let's look at the next piece, useful strategies for managing approaching curves in the road. So, you know, thinking about what happens when you're driving. For example, for years, I've gone back and forth to California frequently. My sister lives there, and, you know, all kinds of things have gone back and forth. And when you are on the 15, things are moving very fast on that expressway. I thought I'd be out in the desert and it would be quiet. Oh no, you've got big trucks and cars everywhere, and they keep moving. They don't stop. Well, it's also as you start heading toward California. It's mountainous, it's hilly, there are curves in the road, and you have to be awake and you have to be alert. So think about yourself. When you're driving, you're approaching a curve in the road. What are some of the things that you have to do? So number one, let's fill in the blank in your handout. It's keep your ears and eyes open. You have to pay attention every day so that you can anticipate what curves might be coming up and where you may have to alter your approach or how you're going to respond, or your need, you know, to be proactive. So I know sometimes this is really hard when you have all this activity going around you, but don't work on autopilot. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that before. We don't want to be on autopilot at work. The accelerated assistant is actually very tuned in as he or she operates at that faster pace. Pay attention. I mean, really read what comes across, you know, your inbox. Read what your executive is reading. Listen, you know, when people are talking to you, just know how to sort out, though, what's the real stuff you need to listen to and what you don't need to listen to. Number two, so if you think about coming to a curve in the road, what do you do? Think about that for a minute. You're heading into a curve. What do you do? It begins with an A, and the word is anticipate. You start to think about slowing down. How quickly do you need to slow down? How much do you need to start to slow down? I know for me, you know, in those drives, it's how do I navigate the curve? Again, how sharp is the curve? How broad is the curve? Does the curve, you know, involve going downhill? So as you see, again, things coming in at you and curves in your day. Today, when we get off this webinar, there may be curves in your day today. There may be curves in your week, things you weren't expecting. So you have to start to anticipate how you're going to approach that curve. Try to think ahead. Try to navigate. Again, just like thinking about that race car driver too, although they're going around and around, not just in a curve, but that's the same thing they have to do. They have to anticipate. And then number three is to become laser focused. So I was picturing, again, as I actually come into a curve, in the road, I'm laser focused. I'm really watching. I don't want to get out of control. I'm watching the other cars around me. So again, the same thing at work as you're approaching, into the curves of your day, become more laser focused on the curve. And think about what might some curves be for you as an administrative professional. What might you anticipate as some curves that are coming? And I'm not saying, I don't want it to infer that curves are bad curves. There could be great curves. There could be good things coming your way, good things, changes taking place in your organization. It could be curves with technology, the use of new technologies. So you still would anticipate, you still would reach out for resources, right? So let's talk about slowing down as an effective strategy. And slowing down almost seems, counterintuitive, doesn't it? In other words, if you think about speeding up, why would I slow down? Well, we know there's many reasons we would slow down. So let's talk about why would we slow down and how would you slow down? Because I know for many assistants, they feel like there is no way I could take a 5-minute break. Are you kidding? Everything is coming at me, at race speed, or the speed of lightning. So it's a choice we make. First of all, let's start there. It's a choice we make, and slowing down is something we do in our mind. For example, right now, in my mind, I could slow down the pace of this webinar. I have a lot of information to cover with you, and I've been going fast, moving fast. I want to make sure we get it in so we have time for your questions and to circle back on things. But also right now, in my mind, I can say, slow down, Joan. Why are you racing? Why am I going so fast? Just catch my breath a minute. Let's catch our breaths a minute. It feels strange, doesn't it? You're probably like, oh my gosh, this is weird. And you probably felt like 30 seconds passed when probably 2 seconds passed. Can you not take a 2-second break? Can you not take a 5-second break? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did the earth fall apart because you took 5 seconds out to breathe? No. So don't get so caught up in this acceleration. Yes, we have to keep up and we have to be 10 steps ahead, but you have to breathe as you go through your day. You have to take those few minutes to stop, to reassess. Something I love to do is around 2 o'clock in my day. Like I'll go. So if I come in, it's 8 o'clock. I'm kind of on that pace, fast pace, till about 2 o'clock. Then 2 o'clock, I notice, is when I tend to then step back, take a break, slow down. I reassess where I am with everything, my priorities, my projects, my work, my tasks, what I have to have done by 5 o'clock today. I think about who do I need to get hold of before the day is over? Are there people I need to call? Are there people I need to write? Are there people in my office I need to talk to? And I regroup and I'm ready to go then for the rest of my day. So maybe think about and make it a ritual, pretty much make it a ritual, unless you have an emergency, obviously, and your executive needs you or there's a meeting or whatever. What might be your time of day that you're going to breathe and take a breath and reassess and regroup and then be laser focused to accomplish what you need to accomplish the rest of your day. And then, yes, as things come in and your activities shift and the demands upon you shift, then go to your strategy of prioritizing. And I just want to mention at this time, what I often see when I do the one-on-one on-site coaching work, where I sit with an assistant for 2 days actually, and I watch everything that assistant does. And often that assistant is trying to focus and work on a particular task. And then something comes into his inbox or her inbox, and they shift gears right away and do that very thing, although that very thing is not more important than what they were working on. Or someone will come up to their desk, or their executive will give them something and they'll drop that and they'll work on that particular thing. No, as an accelerated assistant who needs to be laser focused, you're not going to do that this year, okay? You're going to, have more control and keep yourself focused. So I want to recap because I did move rather quickly through this program. Let's do a recap and just go through everything we've covered, and then I'm going to open it up to questions and comments because I want to hear how you're feeling as you start your year out and as you think about the theme and yourself about being an accelerated assistant. So if we go back to the beginning, we talked about the 7 areas that you need to accelerate in this year. And as I review them, maybe think about what are the top 3 you would like to focus on and really put into your vision this year. So learning curve, remember, you've got to accelerate, but remember, merely acquiring knowledge is not enough. And maybe learning in bite-sized pieces. The second area to accelerate definitely is your responsiveness to change, being responsive to change, even when you don't like it. And I gave you some tools for that. Maybe you want to replay this webinar and you can go back and jot those ideas down. Number 3, accelerating your time to execute. We don't have the luxury of time and taking our time to execute the mission and our tasks. But remember, quality is the key word. Don't let the quality of your work or relationships suffer. The next one was accelerating career management. Be the owner of your career and looking at all the aspects. This is January. What are your professional goals for this year? You should already have those in place. And if not, I want to encourage you before January 31st comes, get that down. But more importantly is, who do you want to become in 2017? I mean, first we have to know what our vision is for ourselves for the year, and then we kind of backtrack into the learning that we want to take place. And then accelerating your value to your company. So I know many of you already bring tremendous value to your organization. So how are you going to increase your contribution? Number 6 is to accelerate focus. Number 7 is in the area of innovation. And remember, that was something that you should be working on a daily basis. And then in terms of controlling the rate of acceleration, I said that we can't always control the rate of how fast things come at us, but you look for the areas you can control. And then remember to keep your eyes open for approaching curves that are going to come, both good and maybe ones you don't want to happen. And then last, to really incorporate this strategy of slowing down, even though it sounds counterintuitive. And as it says in your handout, don't let others outpace you. Put yourself in the fast lane this year. All right, Jasmine, well, great. We have a lot of time to work on questions and comments today, so.
Excellent. Well, we have several questions already, so why not just dive right in and get to the first few questions here. So Phyllis asks early on, it's interesting that all of this advice is contrary to the current rage of multitasking. So she's asking, is multitasking no longer the norm?
Yes, and I'm giving you this big grin because I've been talking about not multitasking for at least 3 years or more. And yes, I mean, to seriously answer your question, no, multitasking is something you do not want to have in your vocabulary. The word is focus, and encouraging anyone in our audience to really Google, to just Google multitasking and focus and such, and there are volumes of research, both scientific and just experiential, that proves multitasking is very stressful. It actually can damage your brain. It can cause all sorts of other things. And focus is really the strength that we need to have.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Joan. Now, Mary Wilson also sent in a question, and Mary wants to know what the most effective strategy to set measurable goals for support position that has no metrics. So how can we set those measurable goals?
I think that's a really good question. Thank you for asking that, because most of the goals, probably all the goals actually, that I've worked on with assistants are the intangibles. It's not like, let's say in the old days, you know, when we were typing, you could say, okay, I type at 60 words per minute, my goal's 90, and then you could test for it and say, oh, I can do that now. 99% of probably what you assistants need to strive for are the intangibles, and that's what we teach. So instead, in setting those goals, let's say, for example, we have an assistant that wants to get more engaged in the scope of her executive's work. That's the goal for this year, so that she could become more, or he can become more of a strategic partner with the executive. So what we do then is we list the steps that assistant will take to get more engaged in the scope. So one action item might be is that I'm going to have a one-on-one meeting with my executive and ask for my executive to spend some time explaining to me his or her true mission and purpose of what they're trying to accomplish this year, to give me more background and information on the breadth and scope of his or her work. A second item might be to truly understand the scope of my executive's work. Maybe I need to read through a lot of the emails my executive sends. Another way I would get involved in the scope of my executive's work is to read the periodicals, the books, the industry periodicals that come across my executive's box, or that they maybe still receive in the mail. So that's how we map out steps. And ideally, what I suggest is that you list 6 areas for improvement that you want to work on, maybe, let's say, over the next 90 to 120 days. And so engaged in the scope of my executive's work is one of them. And then what you really want to focus on are the actions you're going to take to make that happen. And you can do it, you just have to give it some time and give it a little thought.
Absolutely. And a lot of what you described, Joan, too, is following that SMART goal plan. So if they can find more, I know we have information on the blog, SMART goal setting for administrative assistants, and that's a great place to start too.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, Becky is one of our longtime followers and friends of Office Dynamics, and we know Becky has a new position where she is supporting the president, and his focus is on changing culture. So there's going to be a lot of accelerating change and a lot of shifting going on as they're working on changing their corporate culture. Is there any suggestion that you have for Becky on how she can best support this executive right now?
Wow. Well, first of all, hello, Becky. And that sounds exciting and very challenging. So first, I guess I would say, is really understanding what that culture is supposed to look like. So having that great dialogue with your president, what is that culture supposed to look like? Because if I just say a culture of teamwork, okay, or collaboration, but what does that mean to me as the owner of a company or the president of a company? what does that look like? So the more perspective you have on it, the better you'll be able to figure out how to, support that. A second way, I firmly believe you have to live it. Whatever your executive is saying, here's what we want our culture to look like. If it's open dialogue with each other, then you model that. Do exactly what it is. And what'll happen is you'll start to become a role model for others in the organization, and help them show show them what that would look like, so they get a feel for that. I also believe being very supportive and listening to your executive. It's difficult to change a culture, especially if it's been there for a long time. It's a hard process. So I would say be that good sounding board for your executive, as maybe he or she hits some roadblocks. Be patient, definitely, with yourself and with the whole process, and trust in it. And hopefully you really believe in it, because that will help you a lot.
Great answer. That's wonderful. And our next question comes from Karen. So Karen is asking about making herself more marketable. She's looking at career management related to talking to her supervisor about her goals for this year. And what's the best way to say that you would like extra responsibilities to increase your skills, which may lead to future opportunities, whether they're within that organization or outside of it. How can she communicate that with this current executive?
So first thing that came to my mind is you have to weigh what your relationship's like. And what I mean by that is, for some executives, if they heard me say, I want to increase my skills so I could leave you in 6 months, I might be, what? Yeah, forget that. I'm going to train you and coach you and develop you just so you could leave me. However, you might have the kind of relationship that does exist with some executives who do believe in grooming people just for the overall of grooming people for the benefit of the organization as well as for themselves. So weigh what your relationship's like, just to kind of guard yourself in your job. But I think having open dialogue is also very important, in being able to say that you would like to contribute more, to be a more valuable asset to your executive and the team and the organization. And therefore, one way you see being able to do that is to take on more responsibility, and would love for your executive to delegate more assignments to you and teach you maybe some of the things that they normally do, thus saving them time, freeing them up to focus on other aspects of the job, and you're developing your skill set as well.
Wonderful. Another great answer, Joan. You're just full of so much wisdom, and I'm seeing lots of comments about everyone just really appreciating such rich content in the question and answer today, and just really enjoying the information that's being provided. We have a couple more questions, and we want all of you who are still live with us, please stay tuned, because with every webinar, we do have a special offer for you that we save until the end of the webinar, but we want to be sure that you are here with us when we let you know what we have coming up for you. So our next question is from Lisa, and it's an interesting question, but I believe that many assistants may find themselves in a similar situation or have somewhat of a similar challenge. So, and I don't know if this is medically diagnosed or if it's just an assumption, but Lisa's saying her boss has ADHD and she wants to know, how can I help her to focus? And whether your boss really has this or not, they may have so many things pulling at them that they're having trouble focusing. And as their assistant, how can we help to reel them back in and focus on the priorities at hand?
Woo, that's a good one. So yes, first of all, knowing, is it truly ADHD? And understanding, what that looks like for someone. And I know that there are particular strategies that high-level executives have used themselves to deal with that. Years and years ago, I remember reading about an executive of a very large organization within a huge corporation. And I kept that article because to me it demonstrated our desire if we want to achieve something and how strong desire plays out. But for example, the strategy was for this executive to catch up with just the simple basics that you and I can do without thinking twice. He would wake up 3 o'clock every morning to do very basic, simple math and reading things just to get to our basic level. So I would just encourage you to understand more what that is like for someone, so then you can figure out better ways, and how you could help. Yes, executives have a very hard time focusing today in general, and that has to do again with the acceleration, with everything coming at them 100 miles an hour. And how can you help them focus? One is keep a list of the ongoing tasks, projects, follow-up items that are in process. And that's where daily huddles come in handy, because when you have a daily huddle, even if it's on the telephone, so if you work virtually, you can remind your executive, oh, what about this? What about that? Remember you were going to write that report. Remember you have to prepare for that presentation. So you can help keep pulling their focus in. Another idea that one assistant did this year that I really, really liked, and it was the result of coaching I did with her and her executive, is the executive is getting so many emails, and of course they get buried, and then as the executive you forget, maybe you don't circle back or you scroll down far enough and you lose track of the action items. So every Friday this assistant presented her executive with a recap of emails that were kind of still needing something to be done with them. And I loved it because she broke it down by things that need your approval, things that you need to prepare for, meetings you need to prepare for. And she basically said, here's who the email is from, here's the date of that email, here's the subject, and here's the action you need to be taking. So every Friday she was pulling her executive back into focus on the requests and things that were coming in through email that she needed to execute. So, that's another way. Jasmine, I know, you've reminded me over the years of different things through just verbally telling me, remember, Joan, you wanted to do this. Remember, Joan, you wanted to work on that. So you could also drop those hints throughout the day as well.
Great. Well, and your administrative skills can really shine here as well, keeping that list, like you said, Joan, being able to give those gentle reminders and also having those daily huddles, that's going to be, your keys to success there. So excellent response to that question. We've got more wonderful questions pouring in, so I'm going to just keep on going through. Karen is asking in her current, Karen we already talked about, but Antoinette is asking, as far as accelerating can sometimes bring more mistakes. So what are your thoughts on accelerating and staying accurate? I know you talked a little bit about that earlier in the webinar.
That's really important, and thank you. That's a very good question, because I know it's happened to me. I'll be very honest. I mean, I'm human, and if I've noticed, it's happened over time when things are coming so fast and I only have so many hours in the day and I only have so much bandwidth. I mean, yeah, I can go and go and go, but at a certain point, there's nothing left. It's 7 o'clock at night, let's say. So taking that very, cautiously and carefully, and maybe one example. I don't know if this will work for you or not. But what I will do, if it's toward the end of the day and there's something I really know that I'm supposed to respond to or get done, instead of dealing with it then, I will wait till the next morning. And either I will do it before I start my actual work day or as soon as I come in, because I know in the morning I'm going to be refreshed. I'm going to have clearer thinking. I'm going to do a better job. So yes, really deciphering what absolutely must be done. But let me switch the question on you. And this is for everyone. And I came up with this years ago. Instead of asking what must be done, ask the question, what is the impact if I don't do this today? Is it going to embarrass my executive? Is it going to hold someone else up? Is it going to affect client relations? So instead, ask, what's the impact if I don't do it? And you may say, oh, the impact is, well, you know, the person might not be happy that they've got to wait a few days, but they'll be okay. They'll live with it. Okay, then that's okay. So you can wait. So you're also evaluating, you know, throughout your day. But yes, I would encourage you, especially if it's something really important. Like for me, maybe it's my presentation slides. I mean, it's really important. Will you slow down and proofread my presentation slides or hand out materials, you know, things like that. So also weigh, you know, that work and making sure you make time for the critical items.
Yes, absolutely. Now we just have about 5 minutes left, Joan, so I want to make sure that we honor the time that we mentioned.
Yes.
We would talk about what we have coming up for everyone. As you know, this webinar, the Accelerated Assistant, is just a sneak peek of what we'll be doing in October with the annual conference, the 24th annual conference for administrative excellence. So we have a special, very special and limited offer for anyone who does decide that this conference is for them. They want to come to this event here in Las Vegas in October. It's October 17th through the 20th. We do currently have some early bird seats left available. I believe there are about 60 of them left, and those will go quickly. So the limited early bird seating is a special price. I believe it is $14.95. Is that correct, Joan?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, just want to make sure I'm
it is. Yeah.
Double checking my accuracy there. The Accelerated Assistant, our annual conference for administrative excellence, we do have some bonus items that we are throwing in for anyone who does register before January 31st, 2017. And it's nearly $700 worth of bonus material on top of your $100 early bird discount. So you will get the Gain Recognition and Achieve Your Worth MP3 download. You will also get the Mastering Exceptional Self-Leadership online learning program. That was a 2-day live event that Joan and I did together, and it was recorded, so now it's available in the online learning format that comes with a full workbook. Setting Healthy Boundaries, another webinar that was recorded. Building a Better Partnership, the entire bundle, so you will get the executive and assistant guide along with all of the digital bonuses that come with that. Managing Your Executive's Day, which is a $99 value, and the Linked or Lucky webinar, which is all about networking. So lots and lots of information that you will have access to immediately upon registration. You'll get your information via an email with your login credentials, so you'll be able to access that before the conference in the fall. So you will have lots of time to really accelerate your learning and accelerate your administrative career by putting into action the things that you do learn through these webinars and through this material. So if it's something that you can do, that you have on your list, know that that offer is available during January only. So if you have this kind of out there with your executive that you're talking about it, make sure that you have that conversation that this special bonus is available. So if you're interested in getting that now or before January 31st, you can definitely take advantage of that extra material that you will get. Joan, do you have anything in addition that you want to share about the Accelerated Assistants, that a reason why assistants that are tuning in with us today don't want to miss this program this fall?
Yes, and there's just a couple other things too. I just want to answer one question I saw, because somebody was asking to fill in the blank in part of the handout. So it's, sorry, under Managing the Approaching Curves, it's number 3. It's laser focused. And I know there was, I actually forgot to take the O out of there. So if you're confused, it is laser focused. But as far as the acceleration and why I think it's, you know, it's a very, very important topic, and attending, if you can, conference this year would be amazing, because it's just not going to slow down. It just isn't, and things are only going to go faster. So if you don't use and learn the tools now and what this all means and the impact and how to be effective in this new world, it's just going to get even harder for you as time goes on. And I know we have some great speakers, that we are looking into right now. We're going to have Lisa Olson back. I know she has a really neat concept that she shared with us just like a week ago. And I don't want to give it away. I don't want to tell about it because it's really cool analogy. But this is, the next step for you. It really is, in terms of being the accelerated assistant. And then I guess the only other message I wanted to be sure to say before we close, if anyone, if you're not able to attend the conference, and I hope you can and take advantage of all these extra great goodies and bonuses to accelerate your learning. But I also want to mention is that I'm going to be in Chicago in April. So if you can't come to Las Vegas, you can't come to conference, be sure to come back in February. We're going to talk about a topic and build on a topic about building a partnership, start partnership. And I will be visiting Chicago to kick off Administrative Professionals Week. So that might be an option.
That, as well as Conference on Demand. Conference on Demand is also available. It's a fraction of the price, and it's all of the wonderful sessions that you can tune into at your own time, pace, watch them again. So that's another great option. But we just want to thank everyone for logging in with us today. If this was your first time attending a webinar with Office Dynamics, welcome. We're glad you're here, and we hope that we'll have you back. And for everyone else who's been tuning in with us continuously, thank you so much. We've had such a wonderful time with you today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Happy New Year, everyone. Bye.